Shalom, shalom, wonderful friends. There's another way in which we could describe the happenings of what happened when Adam and Chava ate from that tree on that tragic day. And the way we could explain it is based on the teachings, the wisdom teachings of Rabbi Yosef Singer. And when he explained this to me 20-something years ago, the word I'm about to use was not known as much as today, and specifically and especially the definitions of this word. Rabbi Singer explained that when Adam and Chava ate from the tree, yes, we spoke about Tikkun Hamidais, and we spoke about Achdus, the drop in consciousness and the separation. Another word that we can use to describe what happened is that Adam and Chava went through a trauma. In fact, the trauma that we experience humanistically, globally, as individuals, it comes from this traumatic experience that Adam and Chava experienced when they ate from the tree. What is trauma? What can we define as trauma? And we're only speaking on very superficial levels here. There's more to talk about. But right now, what we can say is trauma is a response, or trauma is caused by a severe distressing situation. Trauma is a response to a severe, distressing situation. Another way of sharing this is that trauma becomes trauma when the person experiencing the situation does not have the vessels, doesn't have the consciousness, the capability to hold what's going on in front of them within that situation. Or traumatic experience could be a traumatic experience for one person and not a traumatic experience for another person. Let me explain. Take, for example, somebody who is a soldier. They've trained for years for combat. Or you take somebody who is a surgeon, trained for years. When they go into war, or when a person goes into surgery, they can hold the situation because they've trained for it. They won't flinch. They won't fall apart. They can hold the situation. The soldier in times of distress can remain centered and calm, clear thinking, and can proceed with strength, with a resilience. A surgeon who goes into invasive surgery, cutting someone open and then doing what they do, whereas somebody who's not trained from the perspective of the soldier, or somebody who's not trained from the perspective of a surgeon, they can melt, they can break down, they can go into a state of shock with what they experienced. Yet somebody who is trained, a trained martial artist, if they do fighting, cage fighting, and they are used to being punched in the face or the stomach or the kidneys, they're not going to collapse and fall apart the way somebody who is untrained would. So what we are expressing here in one level of definition of the word trauma, it's meeting a situation. And the situation, so to speak, what's going on is too much for the person to hold. They can't hold what's going on. Another way of describing trauma is a person's ripped away from innocence. If it's a child or an adult, it's still called this ripping away from innocence. We were living a certain life and then we were knocked away from a maybe more innocent way of living. And trauma manifests in many different ways. Today, if we know from the world of healing, the world of trauma, you have micro traumas and macro traumas. When we speak about Chet Adam, we're speaking about a macro trauma that occurred. When Adam and Chava ate from that tree, they were flooded, so to speak, with light, and they didn't have the vessels to hold that experience. And as we look in the Chumash, what happened after they ate from the tree? They became aware of self. They experienced shame. They went and they hid. They blamed. And if we look, when somebody goes through a traumatic experience, what's labeled in Chumash in the 3rd chapters really gives an understanding of the human experience as we go through some sort of trauma. So we spoke in more religious terms, Tikkun Hamidos and Achdus. We spoke in more religious terms, psychological religious terms. There was a drop of consciousness and a ripping away of the source, from the source. And now we are going into more of a humanistic experience. Adam and Chava experienced a trauma. Again, we are exiled from the oneness and we're exiled from that love. Each and every one of us. And we are shards, we are parts of the collective soul of Adam. So, my friends, when we're speaking about Adam and Chava, and we're speaking about what happened when they ate from the tree in Gan Eden, we're speaking about the humanistic story. All human beings, we're all involved. Really, all of reality, we're all involved in this repair. And the shame, the anxiety, the stress, the darkness that each and every one experiences from time to time. The emanation, the source of that comes from Chet Adam, comes from this event that took place. And as we go further, the goal, the wanting, Bli Neder will be able to speak about the healing of the trauma, the ability to raise our consciousness, the ability to metaken our midas and experience greater achdus, where if anybody knows, when we recognize we've gone through a trauma and we heal from the trauma, the natural consequence is that usually we become healthier and more conscious, and usually as well, the natural consequence is achdus. May experience bracha, mazel, and hatzlacha, kol tov, kol ha'yeshuas.